Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, good evening and good morning from wherever you're coming at right now. July 25th, 1:44 a.m. currently. Hopefully you guys are doing good. Welcome to the live stream / podcast. I decided to do a little late night action. You know, Friday night, see how the market's going, the whole 9 yards. We'll be starting up here shortly, guys. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully everybody's doing good. Got the hookah lit up. We're gonna hop into some action, see what's going on, that whole 9 yards, you know what I'm saying? We'll get into some action, take a look at everything, you know what I'm saying, guys? Hopefully you guys are doing good. Classic TV, first episode, late night. Doing a little bit of crypto podcast, a little crypto talk. Kind of winging it. Just kind of look at the price action. We're gonna be looking at it live. I am in a position right now, shorting Bitcoin at 95.50. Currently at 95.92. Down about $85. Shorting this position here. We'll take a look at this action in just a few. Show you guys that whole 9 yards in just a sec. Matter of fact, take a look at it right now, guys. What we're looking at here is a little crypto action. A lot of buying going on. We're looking at the 1 hour signal here. We'll look at the 30-minute. A lot of nice action going on, guys. A lot of buys. Correlating still in the good angle here, holding resistance. Major resistance at what are we looking at here? Bump this in a little bit. You see a little bit better. $96.03 right now. We got some more buying power. A lot of buying power going on right now. Litecoin is popping. $47. Had like a $5 increase today. A 6% increase. Big move. Bitcoin didn't follow in suit, nor did Ethereum. But Ethereum is pushing over. It's trying to break over. If it goes over 300, it probably will go parabolic. That's just my my honest opinion. Ethereum has a lot of eyes on it. Not only that, because DeFi is around the whole 9 yards, and well, a lot of people checking out Ethereum 2.0. That's supposed to be coming out. That whole 9 yards. So a lot of action for Ethereum. A lot of volume. Bitcoin's volume is still kind of low for intraday trading. It's fighting right now. We'll take a look at how Coinbase chart's looking here. 95.99. We'll look at the order books of how it's going. Seems to be steadily moving. CoinDesk. We'll take a look and see how CoinDesk is going. I got the hookah going, ladies and gentlemen. See if there's any bullish news that's going around right now and around the world. Hopefully everybody's doing good. Like I said, we're just kind of winging it tonight. A little crypto after dark. Weekend trade and see how the market's kind of correlating for the weekend. You know, You gotta light up a little something, get your mind right. You know what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen? You already know what time it is. We're gonna be looking at the price action. Looking at the news a little bit. 9603 once again over here. Ethereum 284 seems to be correlating the same way. We'll take a look at some videos, kind of correlate with that, and then kind of take a look and see, you know, what kind of action we're gonna be kind of going in with and all that good jazz. We needed to drop here, and we needed to get a nice little drop. Again, we got position open at 95.55. I don't know if you guys can see that here. I'll bump it up again a little bit for you guys. 200% here, so kind of see a little bit better. Oh, it's too much. We got some studies going on in the chart here that we charted out. We'll go to the 1 hour. 1 hour is looking. We might see a little RSI. Should bump this back up to maybe like 150. There we go. That's a little bit better, right? Hopefully that's good for you guys. I'm on an ultra wide screen right now, so. $75. We'll take a look at a video while we get our mind right. We'll do a little some. Let's take a look here and see. It's in the cryptocurrency. Let's do cryptocurrency, but we'll do a 9 hours ago. Wait, let's go to crypto. 5 hours ago. We're gonna look for the, we'll do a little something. 8 hours. Chico Crypto, 9 hours. Crypto Jeb. Altcoin Daily. The hell. Let's see what this interview is about here.
What would it take to see Bitcoin break out of this range that we've been seeing? And what's your explanation for why we're seeing kind of more altcoins? You know, some of them are a little bit stranger than others, start to create a bit of more dominance in this market.
Sure. Well, I honestly think it's great to be back. Thank you. And I honestly don't know what's going to take Bitcoin to break this. There's a number of factors that could happen, but I think it's probably just going to be time. I think with all the macroeconomic things that's happening, with the amount of quantitative easing and the amount of fiat flowing into the economy, I think sooner or later it's going to break out. But right now, for the last little while, Bitcoin has been really stable, and people have been calling the stable coin now. So our data also shows that it is very much a out season right now. So I think right now on Binance Futures, more than 60% of the volume comes from altcoins, which is actually much higher than before. And also when we look at the top performers for Q2 from March 31st to June 31st, of the 200 coins that's listed on Binance, only 3 went down. So I guess it is a very much a altcoin. What's fueling it is a little bit is anybody's guess. I guess there's a number of different factors. Even Elon Musk tweeting about Dogecoin could be it, could be part of it. So yeah, I mean, we don't know, but it is very active right now.
We all laughed when Dogecoin was created, right? It's just been an extraordinary story. I want to get your views on this Twitter hacking that we saw last week and the direction that people were told to direct Bitcoin into 3 different accounts. There is more of a paper trail, but does this kind of give a bit more, fire to those who criticize users of Bitcoin for being, I guess, supporting some of the lack of transparency and the fact that there is more criminality when it comes to transactions associated with Bitcoin and altcoins as well?
So I think Bitcoin is actually more transparent than traditional fiat. If somebody robbed the bank, it's actually quite difficult to trace the fiat cash. Whereas with Bitcoin, there is an audit trail, and people know there are 3 addresses, and people are tracking it now. I think I'm actually pretty confident that given the way the hack is done and the crime is done, people will be able to track it with a very high degree of certainty. So I think it only happened the case only happened a few days ago. So hopefully, give it some time. I think law enforcement probably will have a pretty good chance of cracking it. So again, this is not a case where Bitcoin did something wrong. It's just the hacker wanted a Bitcoin because it's valuable. So same as when people rob a bank, we don't say the cash is wrong. It's just the bad players wants cash. So I think that's just the situation.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, they didn't refer this scam to a bank account or to cash, deliveries. They actually used the degree of anonymity that Bitcoin actually provides in order to engage in this criminal behavior. Will this at least have an impact when it comes to the reputation of cryptocurrencies?
I don't think so anymore. I think people nowadays understand that it's not Bitcoin doing the crime. It's just Bitcoin is valuable. Bitcoin is a better form of money than fiat. So it's more transferable. It's more anonymous. But the Bitcoin does leave a very clear, easy to follow trail on the blockchain. So it's public and it's permanent. And also with this incident, I think Bitcoin got a lot of publicity. How often do you get like ex-presidents,
so at the time of this, 7:48 a.m., it was Bitcoin was at 9,221. This was must have been the beginning of the week.
Any news is good news, sort of. That
this whole week, I mean,
there.
it's been really bullish.
Let me ask you about, say, another idea that crypto enthusiasts go to, the idea that cryptocurrencies can act as safe havens, especially at a time when you want to hedge against the macroeconomic environment when you have inflation and the likes. But then during this whole pandemic, we have really seen, say, Bitcoin, Ethereum, behave like other assets. At one point in the pandemic, we saw Bitcoin and Ethereum moving in lockstep with the S&P 500. So what has this crisis shown us about what this cryptocurrency hedge actually means?
Oh, is this? Sure. We just got a bullish signal here, I think. Let's take a look here.
Too literally.
Bitcoin. Oh boy, 96.21. Oh, she is pumping.
And if you imagine
she is
Bitcoin,
pumping right now.
The same as a float, and there's a Titanic sinking.
We need her to crash.
The float to the Titanic.
96.7. Oh, what a big increase! I mean, geez, we've got some major buys coming in.
I think when we look at
2:06 a.m.
The whole market crashed. Stock market is probably 1,000 times bigger than crypto markets. When that goes down, and a lot of people are losing a lot of money, and many of those people who have crypto investments will want to convert those investments into cash. So that it has a drag down effect when a large asset type or asset category is going down. But I think if you look at the longer time horizon, with so much quantitative easing, with so much fiat flowing around, I think the safe haven properties of Bitcoin will come through over time.
Susie, what do you make of China's cryptocurrency ambitions?
Well, I think it's great. I think 2 years ago, when we talked on this forum first time, I would have not imagined that central banks, or especially like central banks of China, could be looking at cryptocurrencies so quickly. And I think regardless of
well, it looks like we got some leeway to make now because it's pumping.
But you don't get too many chances of educating 1.4 billion people. And this is the central government, central bank of China doing that now. So now 1.4 million people will be educated on by the government for blockchain crypto digital currencies. And I think once people use it, once people understand how blockchain currencies work, they will naturally learn about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as well. I think that's great exposure. I think that's great for our industry.
Right, and with the likes of Meituan Dianping and Didi being involved, and we know how quickly digital finance really can grow in China and gets taken up by the demographic, right? So is there a real opportunity that sometime soon we could see a Chinese digital currency kind of replace the RMB even in common consumer usage?
I think it's very likely. I think it's also much easier in China than most people outside of China think. China's currencies are already very digital. Most people pay with WeChat or Alipay.
Very bullish on Bitcoin right now. It is popping. It went from 95.90 to almost 96.25 just now.
So it's already very digital. Is that the difference now is that there's a blockchain component.
Interesting. We got to watch it closely here, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of action going on right now. It is 2:10 a.m. Eastern Standard, 2:08 actually.
And after that, then it's another small step.
And she's making some moves. We're gonna take a look at it.
I think it's guaranteed to happen. So
let's continue watching here.
Is very high in my opinion.
CZ, before we let you go, just give us an update on any interesting trading patterns that you've seen during this pandemic lockdown, and perhaps some of the regional differences that you felt.
Sure. I think now compared to 2.5 years ago, we see a lot of differences now. So the last time we spoke, Binance was like the sort of big crypto to crypto spot exchange, but now we are also the biggest futures exchange now. So we see a lot of volume moving to futures because the trading there is a bit cheaper and you get more leverage, etc. I think that's also overall the market as well. There's more futures exchanges this time. And we're seeing more and more of the sort of DeFi is a very hot space. So there's a lot of activity in the DeFi. But again, that's a very new area. There's a lot of risks. There's a lot of potential risks there. I want to warn all the viewers that if you do go into those areas, do go there with caution.
Go there with caution. You hear that? We could take a look and see. Major buys going on though. I'm watching it pretty closely. We will take a look. Let's go. Let's see here. Let's see what the moon has to say.
In this video, Ethereum is right now breaking out of, and it's still currently down 22% trade from these levels, from the neckline out of this W or double bottom pattern. But yeah,
let's see what's something new here. Let's see in the last hour maybe.
While the winnings of a bank heist can be hard to track, it's a different story for Bitcoin and crypto hacks. Unless hackers use mixing and privacy technology.
I don't know about that.
Well. Welcome back to Crown's Crypto Cave, ready to herp your derp once again as we get ready for some Saturday morning. Is it Saturday morning? Yes, it is Saturday morning. Analysis on all major markets today, because we do have closures for the weeklies on all of the traditional markets and Forex as well. So I want to follow up on that, of which we hit all of our downside targets from yesterday, now kind of ranging out, and the game of rotations, I believe, is about to begin. And as far as Bitcoin goes, well, Bitcoin might be in the next rotation, of which I do think that is a very interesting prospect as of right now. So I definitely want to be focusing on that, or following up on that from yesterday. And what else do I want to say? It's a very sad day for me today, because I've actually gotten banned from my favorite fucking steakhouse. So life sucks right now. Anyways, more on that later. No, less on that later. You don't need to hear me cry about that. But for whatever reason, it's invading my mind right now, so I can't help myself. Anyways, let's go check out the CrownChain application, which can be found at app.crownchain.net. And what do we see here? We do see that open interest more or less the same. We do see that Bitcoin dominance actually taking another 0.25% leg to the downside. So all it's really
grab these coals right quick.
From Bitcoin's short-term bullishness and medium-term bullishness, and
we need a pullback here. Pretty massive pullback is what we need. We don't need another run.
Greed index, we're still kind of hovering in the mid 55s.
Hopefully we can
up a couple points from yesterday, which is still very interesting here, because Bitcoin has been more or less in sideways consolidation for the past 3 months. and we haven't really,
but
we
it's
haven't
looking
really
like
gotten
a
into the greedy
nice,
zone during that time.
like
kinda
it's
oscillating
pumping
between
pretty
the
nice.
sorry, the upper echelons of the fearful zone and the neutral zone, which is where we are right now.
Listen to
So
this guy, see what he
realistically,
says.
what does that kind of align with? I mean, it would, it'd be a little bit, it'd be another point, I suppose, on the Bulah's side for a resolution in their favor. As far as the greater formation goes, but at the end of the day, still price action trumps all. Or if you don't like that saying, then price action before anything else. I don't know, whatever saying you want to use. Anyways, let's go look at some actual charts right here, of which I want to start off with E-mini futures for SPY. And the weekly did close as a nice reversal dildo, so I do believe that we are live, and then probably things like gold, things like if Bitcoin, or it's actually a little bit more lenient, showing momentum will actually cross back up to the upside with any sort of a closure above 95.77. So that, all in the same range, which is good. And this would be a bullish reset on this one as well, playing out the same sort of trend line. And this is why I look at it as a regression, because you'll notice that there's always an interplay between time frame and an oscillator, and so they'll naturally have like some sort of meeting point in the middle, when the same sort of areas change around.
Give me
that
1
momentum.
second, Guthrie.
Looking at the 2 hour, we do see that momentum's actually already up to the upside right now, and will remain to the upside as long as we're closing above 95.50. That is kind of like your last little base that it put on the very low time frames, but that's not really tradable for myself. I don't really trade over the weekends unless if I had positions open during the week. And hourly shown in the same area as well, actually freshly crossing up, rejecting the bearish control zone, and will remain to the upside as long as we're above 95.50ish or even. So all of these things come into collusion with each other, and that makes for good. What's the word that I'm looking for? That word that happens when everything agrees with each other. Well, confluence. Yeah, that's it. Anyways, go check out some of my secondary tools over here as well. Not something that I do all the time, but I do think that it is worth mentioning on the daily Trollinger bands. This is still kind of the key for me for keeping up this, the short-term and medium-term trend. I want to see Bitcoin close a daily dildo above the top side Trollinger band, which is 9,600. Remember, 9,600 is where the 12-hour momentum, once again turns back up to the upside, as well as all the lower-term timeframes. And from a Trollinger band perspective, we would not only be living above the 20 simple as it has a positive slope, but also more importantly, when you are landing outside the top Trollinger bands, or the bottom for that matter, you are essentially in a trending posture. So to me, that would be a good insight that we are going to continue this one at least for another leg up and see 9,900 to 10,000, and then probably play out a short term down from there, and then come back after that and see what we got. But for right now, I don't see any issues with divergences on MACD histogram. MACD's turning nice and positive right there. Not the biggest deal, but what's more important here. And we spoke about this earlier in this past week. We saw something of a particular interest right here when Bitcoin did retake the median Trollinger band, but also cross momentum on the MACD back up to the upside. That's actually what you're looking for, and that actually is the right way to be playing MACD sort of drives like that. It's not just looking for crosses; it's crosses plus a change, a shift in the not momentum, but
He's talking about the MACD, guys. So we'll add the MACD. We've had it. I took it off because it was crowding up.
The last few days.
Put it back on. We'll talk about the cross MACD over
but
here.
Essentially,
so he's talking about the cross,
what
right?
It implies
so we had a cross.
We're looking at a shift in perspective from that time
21st
frame.
of July.
As momentum from the MACD does turn up while we actually break a short-term pivot. That's where they're looking for. Yes, so that that buy is essentially confirmed, and would still align with some more with a little bit of an upside bias here. But
on the 1 hour
during the weekend, what am I mostly looking for? I'm mostly looking for sideways and just a really sloppy market. So don't confuse my words right now. I'm not necessarily saying that Bitcoin's going to fucking green dildo itself to the goddamn moons here. However, sideways into the weekend is more or less good, I'd say, with probably resolution, sometime around the time that CME's open at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on Sunday, or or, and what's more likely around New York Stock Exchange open on Monday. And here's like a weird thing. I need to find a chart to prove this, but there has been some good studies done showing that the most volatility that happens on Bitcoin, like the most actual movement that we get, usually happens either on Wednesday or Thursday. And to a lesser, those seem to be the days when Bitcoin does start to move. So to speak, is that always going to be the case like that? No, I wouldn't say so. But for the past year and a half, it actually has been working rather well. Okay, what else do we want to look at? Let's see. How long is this video about? 30 minutes? What the fuck? I want to follow up on Eurodollar heading up to the 117.5 target. Massive girthy green dildo closure. Does next week open down a little bit? If it does, I don't think it really matters all that much. I do think that upwards target gets met. Like I've been saying, I am more or less bullish all the way up to, at the very least, 118 actually. So it's more like 118. It's like the upper, around 118. And then probably does get extension to the 200 exponential average on the monthly, coming into the next couple months. Long term, though, I'm actually massively bearish. Well, I wouldn't say I'm massively bearish on this, but I'd be massively bullish on the dollar, like years out. But for the next few months, maybe even next year or two, I have to be bearish on most dollar pairings unless something crazy happens. And right now, with very politically driven and strange market, that could definitely happen. But as far as charts go, looks like Dixie wants to take that major leg down to the 200 exponential average.
So once again, guys, we're shorting. We're at 95.50 leverage position with 2 Bitcoin. We're watching it right now. We're caught in a bull run.
Consolidation for gold. Gold's just green dildoing itself. Well, no. Actually, no. I'm not gonna be wrong.
Kind of did a rush buy earlier after work. Just wanted to get into a bit of action. Got caught. Was up 30 profit and decided to get a little greedy. I didn't take profits when I should have. And ended up where I am now.
The monthly is setting up for a phenomenal closure.
We might have a nice sell-off right before 4 a.m.
August.
That's what I'm hoping for.
But it looks very, 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 very likely here. Gold's probably the best chart in.
What we're looking at is
as it is right now.
Even better
than which actually I haven't looked at right
9604 right now. Unrealized profit at negative $108. So we've got some leeway to make, guys. We've definitely got some leeway to make.
Satoshis. I actually do still think that that's probably what's happening here. Putting in a little bit of sideways above 76,000 Satoshis.
Let's see. Let's see what the crypto hack is
So we
about,
brought you the story of that massive Twitter hack that happened last week, where Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, many of the most famous people in the world and most powerful had their Twitter accounts hacked with the posting of a Bitcoin scam, saying, "Hey, I'm actually giving back to the community." Anyway, so send me some Bitcoin and I'll send it back to you double. One of the dumbest scams in human history. Well, the story of that hack is now being reported in the New York Times, and it's fascinating. Some of the people who were even involved in the hack itself are telling the Times about how there was a username with a man named Kirk who was on this board in which people sold each other domain names and usernames with very short letters. And he said, according to one of the hackers who was involved, and they verified this through text messages that were sent in real time and screenshots, that the person who got access to Twitter credentials found a way into Twitter's internal Slack channel and saw the credentials posted there. So that is very significant because it means, A, your system of security is only as secure as the place in which you keep it.
Channel,
as the Slack channel. So, hey, wait, Slack channels are getting hacked now, not Twitter, and they just use those credentials in order to go in and manipulate and post all of these things. And it goes to show also why it was so difficult for Twitter to identify the source of the problem, because they were using correct login information. Now, the people who were involved here basically tell the tale of this guy named Kirk, and they helped him a little bit, on the margins. And then they didn't realize what he was going to do. And the moment they saw this, they went to the Times, and they're basically like, we didn't have anything to do with this Bitcoin thing, in a bid, I assume, to stop the FBI from knocking down their doors.
Right, because this is,
It's a huge fraud.
A huge deal. I mean, they paint the picture of, a couple of individuals are kind of messing around, they're joking about this thing, and then it becomes incredibly real when Kirk goes ahead and hacks the accounts of Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Bill Gates. I mean, it's like Jeff Bezos. It was just crazy. But essentially, he was able, this Kirk fellow apparently was able to get into this internal Twitter Slack channel. For whatever reason, the credentials were available and posted there. And so then he's just able to log in like it's all normal, like as if he is an internal Twitter employee. Is one of the things that Twitter is trying to track down, and Twitter is apparently still doing their own internal investigation to figure out exactly what happened here. One of the things that they couldn't figure out is whether the hackers were aided by someone within the organization. And I'm not sure that that piece has been totally settled here.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Somebody maybe gave him a login to a Slack channel.
To the Slack channel, and then he went from there. We don't really know at this
These
point.
hackers were up to something.
I mean, the thing that's crazy about it is that this is such a massive security breach. They could have accessed anyone's accounts. They could have, potentially looked at direct messages. We don't know whether they were able to access that level of information, but that it was sort of such a basic approach of just being able to get in the Slack channel and then go from there is crazy.
Yeah, it's just amazing to see. I'm looking, you can read some of these messages. It looks like kids just screwing around until it becomes real. And that's how one of these hacking stories are. And, this person, whoever Kirk is, you're facing a long time in federal prison, my friend, because of some of the things, financial fraud, corporate secrets, and so much more. And so the people who were involved in this basically went to the Times, and they were like, hey, look, had nothing to do with these major hacks. They're like, we helped him around, screw around with some earlier attacks on Wednesday, but the next day had no idea what he was doing whatsoever. So the internal story told by the hackers themselves, encourage everybody to go read it if you're interested in this sort of thing. It's really interesting.
Yeah, they're definitely freaking out right now, as they should be.
As they should.
All right, more rising for you after this.
Well. Okay. Let's see here what the Altcoin Daily has
Welcome
to
back,
say.
everybody. My name's Austin. Today we're talking about Ethereum, we're talking about XRP, we're talking about the latest news in cryptocurrency, keeping you informed. So, like always, let's start with our breaking story of the day. Being reported right out of Bloomberg Law, it's official. The United States has just deemed Bitcoin money under DC Financial Services law.
We did hear about this. We heard about this yesterday.
Possibly the most bullish news we've seen for Bitcoin in 2020. Because the U.S. federal court has just said today the virtual currency known as Bitcoin is a form of money covered under the Washington, D.C. Money Transmitters Act. In fact, let's go to a direct quote from the judge. Money commonly means a medium of exchange, method of payment, or store of value. Chief Judge Borrelli Howell wrote for the U.S. District Court for Washington, D.C., and Bitcoin is these things. Bitcoin is a store of value, is a medium of exchange, is a method of payment, and now, legally speaking, Bitcoin is money. If you appreciate this channel keeping you informed, hit the like button, and let me share with you the exact details. Because for perspective, in the last, 10 days, MasterCard, Visa, and the entire US banking system has put out announcements saying that they are pro-cryptocurrency. Huge news in their own regard from an enterprise level, but this is huge news from a legal level for Bitcoin specifically. Now, for your own records, or if you're just wondering, what are they going to be teaching our kids in the history books? The case is known as the United States versus Hartman. Here's the case number, and this just became legal 7/24/20 today. What were the details of the case? Well, this was the United States bringing up criminal charges against a man named Larry Dean Harmon, who is the operator of an underground Bitcoin trading platform. Now, these criminal charges were for running an unlicensed money transmitting business under DC law and for laundering money under federal law. Now, this has been going on for well over a year, and Larry Dean Harmon's attorneys tried to get this dismissed saying that you can't get us for money laundering and money transmitting because we're using Bitcoin. That's not money. Harman, who allegedly portrayed his platform as a service of stripping Bitcoin of any link to illegal transactions, basically saying they won't catch you if you use my platform, was indicted by a federal grand jury back in 2019. He motioned to dismiss the illegal money transmission claims, arguing that Bitcoin isn't money under the MTA and that his platform couldn't have been a money transmitting business under the US code. And in a landmark decision from the federal court today saying, hey, do we want to convict this guy or do we want to keep Bitcoin as property instead of money? They said, no, Bitcoin is money. It's being used as money. Let's convict this guy. Or at least let's keep trying. The court declined to dismiss this case. They're going to keep going. Now, what does this mean for you as a Bitcoin holder? I would be interested to hear your thoughts. Give me a comment down below. Let me know what you think. If you're new here and you want to stay informed about the daily cryptocurrency news, very important, hit subscribe if you want to stay informed about the daily crypto news. Now, the biggest thing this means for the US is this sets a precedent. This does not mean, as of today at least, it does not mean that Bitcoin right now suddenly becomes a non-taxable event. Cryptocurrency, according to the IRS, is still classified as property, meaning that if you use Bitcoin to buy something, it is considered a sale of Bitcoin, a sale of property, for more than you purchased, and it is a taxable event. If you sell some Bitcoin at a profit that you purchased within the last year, you still have to report that as short-term capital gains on your tax return and pay ordinary income tax rates. So this hasn't changed yet. What has changed is the precedent. As future federal cases are tried for money laundering, for money transmitting, they rely on the precedent that's set by past cases. So this is just a small but very significant step for Bitcoin mass adoption. Next piece of news, before Ethereum, Brian Armstrong, CEO of Coinbase, just went on the What Bitcoin Did podcast and explained to the millions of people why he is selling your data to the government. Brian Armstrong explains how the product, Coinbase Analytics, extends goodwill to the regulators. Check this out. I'm a big supporter of privacy, Armstrong said. Yet, he said that his product does support Coinbase's core business of cryptocurrency trading in as much as it builds goodwill with the regulators by also making the regulators Coinbase's client. That also decreases the potentiality that they would probe Coinbase about specific customer data. So he's saying that he would rather have the US regulators as friends rather than enemies. If we just kind of tell them, hey, F off, like we don't want to help you, then we're just going to develop a kind of hostile relationship with them when they're just going to request even more customer data from us. I mean, that does sound reasonable. They would probably get the data either way. And if you're wondering which specific regulators and U.S. agencies, records show that the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, and the IRS intended to buy Coinbase Analytics back in June, and subsequent public records show that Coinbase struck deals with the U.S. Secret Service and the IRS to use the software tool. So I hope everybody out there kept everything legal. This last point, I really agree with this. Armstrong added that the service is commonplace, and if these agencies weren't a Coinbase customer, they could easily get access elsewhere. That is true. Government would get this information either way, typically. Now they definitely will through Coinbase. Next piece of news. Ethereum transaction fees right now are too damn high. And why is that? Well, even if we just look at the charts, Ethereum settles significantly more value than Bitcoin daily. We can see Bitcoin daily settlement value is going down. Ethereum settlement value is going up. Now, the big difference here is Bitcoin primarily gets its value right now as a store of value, which means its primary use case for Bitcoin is just hodling. More people are hodling. Yet Ethereum primarily gets its value from being able to build on it. And we've been hearing all these DeFi projects and ERC20 tokens building on Ethereum. And until Ethereum scales, transaction fees they're high. If you are wondering how high, let's go to on-chain data from Glassnode. The demand for computations on Ethereum remains persistently high. the daily gas usage is hitting all-time highs. Even this was 2017 at the bubble. The gas usage right now hitting all-time highs over the 70 billion mark for the last month. This is an increase of almost 2 times compared to the beginning of 2020. Now, recently, Vitalik has come on record and warned the community that high fees do threaten Ethereum's security. As Ether transaction fees hit 100 GUI, the project's co-founder warns that a failure to respond could undermine the security of the network. When he says this, nothing to worry about in the short term, but what he's really worried about is he doesn't want Ethereum to trend towards more centralized, which is the fear. And let me explain how. The reason that this might undermine the security is the idea is based on a paper that suggests miners' increasing reliance on transaction fees may incentivize selfish mining practices in a bid to extract greater profits, risking disruption on how transactions are processed. So I think what he's saying is he doesn't want Ethereum miners to get too used to these high rewards, these high fees. And in fact, what Vitalik was suggesting, he was abdicating for the implementation of Ethereum Improvement Proposal, EIP 1599, to reform Ethereum's fees. It involves burning base fees to reduce miners' reliance on transaction tariffs. So he's saying, let's update the code and make it so we burn the initial fees, so miners don't get paid as much. Now, if you're a miner, please comment below what you think about this. Next piece of news, if you are still getting scam ads as advertisements from YouTube when you watch a YouTube video, first off, never send anybody your Bitcoin or your XRP or whatever and expect them to send you double back. That's outrageous. Always
Right?
be aware.
Never do
Ripple has sued YouTube over this. YouTube has finally rebuffed and saying, hey, it's not their responsibility. They are seeking a dismissal. So YouTube is not taking accountability for the ads that they sell on their videos. Crypto firm Ripple filed suit against YouTube back in April, alleging that the video platform hadn't taken enough action to stop the XRP cryptocurrency scam giveaways on their site. And YouTube is even earning ad revenue from those scam videos. So it's clearly YouTube's job to vet these, right? Well, according to Google-owned YouTube, they apparently disagree. As spotted by Law 360, YouTube has filed a dismissal motion on Monday, urging the judge in the case to dismiss the case as the site YouTube believes it's protected by United States federal internet laws. Well, wait a minute. If YouTube isn't responsible, who is? YouTube claims that the fact that such scam videos are shared by third-party creators means that the platform is not responsible for the content of the videos. They're blaming it on the scam ads themselves, saying they're creating their own videos. It's their responsibility. And the site's lawyers point to Section 230 of the U.S. Communications Decency Act in its defense. Outrageous. Outrageous. Let me know what you think. I'll keep you updated. See you tomorrow.
Interesting, guys. Interesting. Let's go back and see where we're at. Okay. Looking like we're coming down here. 95.92. Very nice. We need to keep on coming down and get this down before we get another bull run here. That will not be good. Looking at the 1 hour chart. Yeah. Let's see what this guy has to say.
What's going on, everybody? Let me know when you can hear me. Things like up and spike it up. They're not planning on losing power.
They're not planning
on giving power over to a couple of cypherpunks on the internet who decided that they wanted to transfer control over the entire financial industry to code, math, and algorithms. That was not part of their plan. But what is part of their plan is maintaining control. And so what we're seeing now is most likely they've accumulated enough crypto, in my opinion. They have enough stake in these protocols that they feel comfortable going forward and officially launching their own business practices. And you guys are all talking about lots of icon, link, all these cool coins. We're going to talk about coins at the end. But I want to talk to you about the macroeconomic landscape, the background of why I believe this is just the beginning of a crazy bull run. And the way this bull run, I believe, is going to play out is not going to be similar to the 2017 bull run. It's not going to be similar to the 2013 bull run. It's going to be very, very, very different. Very different. See, this is the unemployment chart. You guys have been hearing about this, right? The unemployment in America is at all-time highs. And this was, of course, now it's been coming down since we were reopening. And I think that has now been reversed. We haven't seen, it's a lagging indicator, so we don't know. But this is absolutely incredible what's happening with unemployment. It's astounding. And so we're seeing, record unemployment. And now we're seeing that, okay, so we injected stimulus, but that's only going to last for so long because companies like United Airlines are preparing their employees to be fired. Get ready to be fired on October 1. This is a real email going out to tens of thousands of American employees.
Wow.
And then we have this, which is saying, hey, if you guys thought stimulus was over, no, you're wrong. We're going to give you more money, and probably more money, and probably more money after that. And what we know for sure is that when we first hit coronavirus and there was all this uncertainty, this is a stock chart showing the NASDAQ value, the NASDAQ composite index. And we know that this thing fell from 9,800 all the way down to 6,900 or so, the low 6,000s, until it was announced that the government was going to be stepping in and pumping the economy full of cash. And then what happened? We got a slow rise that continued and continued and continued and continued. And despite all this devastation that we know to be true, this record-breaking unemployment that far outstrips the 2008 financial crisis, stuff like this has not been happening, right? This was not happening in the 2008 financial crisis. We weren't getting emails like this from nationally or internationally recognized conglomerates saying, hey, we're going to be laying everybody off. This is a new type of recession. But what's happening here is despite all this, we're seeing the stimulus has caused a reinflation of asset prices like in the NASDAQ. And the reason why this is significant is because we know that it's not the case anymore that that the stock market rather reflects the reality of the economy. They are divorced, almost inextricably so.
Ladies and gentlemen,
we're at a
let's do a
place
little
where
cheers, you know what I'm
essentially
saying?
the elites and the wealthy have most of their assets tied up in the economy, in the stock market rather. And because of that, they need to keep fueling this beast that is the stock market, because this controls their wealth. And more importantly, as we talked about, the derivatives market in the greater economy is worth orders of magnitude more than these assets, but they're largely based on the prices of these assets. And so these assets must maintain their value or we get a cascading failure. So with that in mind, getting out of cash, as Anthony Pompliano said, is the most important key to protecting your wealth. And if you're not getting out of your cash, then you're essentially subjecting yourself to inflation and essentially losing the battle to accrue wealth. And this is exactly what's happening, because we know that something called the Cantillon effect occurs every time there's stimulus. When there's stimulus, most of that goes to the billionaires, the finance.
Let's see what Anthony Pompliano has to say.
Nervousness about the impact of the coronavirus outbreak on Monday saw the Dow wipe out year-to-date gains, yet Bitcoin is up around 30% so far this year, far more over the last 12 months. So is it a safe haven in stormy markets or something else entirely? Morgan Creek Digital Assets co-founder and partner Anthony Pompliano joins us now. Great to have you with us.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
You made two observations about the coronavirus outbreak, not that we want to take away from the tragedy that it represents, but the first thing was mining, because a lot of that happens in China.
Yep.
Thoughts there?
Big thing is a lot of manufacturing plants are being shut down, and so those companies are losing revenue. But when it comes to mining, computers are doing most of the work. It takes very few humans, so mining's not impacted. And it's also very decentralized across the globe. And so if you get kind of a virus outbreak in one geographic area, it doesn't necessarily affect the mining hash rate nearly as much. And so I don't think that mining is really susceptible to the same things that like a traditional manufacturing company is.
Okay, we're going to come back to that, I promise you. But we'll move on to the point that I was just making there. And I think the perhaps lack of understanding about how you view crypto, specifically Bitcoin, relative to markets. A safe haven or a hedge doesn't necessarily have to be rising when markets go down.
Yeah, I think a lot of people confuse safe haven and non-correlation, right? And so a non-correlated asset just means that the value drivers are different, right? You see stocks or other assets in the traditional markets are driven by GDP, interest rates, et cetera. Bitcoin's not driven by that. Bitcoin is a artificially capped supply asset that's driven by demand, and demand continues to increase, and so over time you expect supply and demand economics to play out.
So sometimes you could have Bitcoin rising when markets rise. Sometimes it could go down. That's positive correlation. It can also be negative, but what you're saying is remember what the drivers are here, and they're different things.
Absolutely. Bitcoin over a long period of time has been a non-correlated asset. And what I think is exciting about that is when we see times of global instability, geopolitical uncertainty, things like coronavirus, et cetera, stocks, bonds, gold, et cetera, kind of do what you expect them to do. Bitcoin doesn't do that. And so the fact that it doesn't go up is not bad. It's a non-correlated asset. So it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do for your portfolio, which is exactly why we think investors should have it in their portfolio.
Critics would say, though,
you guys
hang on a second, you're telling me to add it to my portfolio.
Interested?
Surely I want it to be doing
do some leverage trading.
The opposite thing
Feel free
when
to
markets
use
are
my
going
referral.
down.
Yep. Again, as long as it is preserving your wealth or increasing it, that non-correlation makes it a safe haven asset, right? You don't want to have everything in your portfolio have the same value drivers. That non-correlation actually reduces the overall risk of the portfolio. Bitcoin has served that purpose for many, many years now. We think that it will continue to do that into the future.
So Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple, was recently on, and he said what's going to define crypto assets in 2020 is the utility value. Where on that curve between a store of wealth, something that you just hold and the price goes up, versus actually something that you can use is Bitcoin? Because a lot of the criticisms that I read, one, it's energy intensive, it uses a lot of energy, and two, in terms of transaction speeds, it's really slow.
Yeah, so first, when it comes to the energy consumption, Bitcoin is using majority renewable energy, right? People have an input into that business, a cost that is the energy cost. And so what they're actually doing is they're going to find the lowest cost energy, which happens to be renewable. So we see things like gas flaring, waste to energy, geothermal, hydroelectric, et cetera. So I think that's actually driving a lot of innovation.
True. I see a lot of criticism of that fact. And if you go to China, I mean, that's coal fueled. They are fossil fueled energy.
Yeah, so there's definitely some not renewable energy, but there's many studies that have now come public where 60, 70, 80% of the energy consumption is actually renewable energy.
In total?
In total, yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely. And then when it comes to utility on the
There we
transaction
go. We're getting that
side,
short
last year,
coming
the
now.
adjusted transaction volume
Love
on
to see it.
chain,
We're
so this
getting
is not
some big
exchange
sales.
traded volume or anything like that. Actually, people sending it for one purpose or another was over $500 billion. And so what that means is it's bigger than Venmo, Apple Pay, PayPal, et cetera, in terms of transaction volumes. And so people
as long as you're not doing it too often, I guess the point.
Well, so again, people can complain about transaction speeds, cost, et cetera, but at the end of the day, people are using this more than they're using Venmo, Apple Pay, and PayPal.
As a store of wealth, though, is the biggest argument here for Bitcoin the store of wealth?
It definitely serves a purpose as a store of wealth. We've seen that do very well. It's up 30% this year. It's up 150% over the last 12 months. But people are also using it to transact and send it for one purpose or another to either businesses or to other individuals.
Warren Buffett, very dismissive yesterday. He said shorting suitcases, i.e., you know, people laundering money. Perhaps they're not going to use suitcases anymore. They're going to use things like digital assets, Bitcoin specifically.
So my two things with Warren, first of all, somebody should tell him that Wells Fargo, one of the companies in his portfolio, recently was found guilty of helping the Sinaloa cartel launder a lot of money. So I don't know necessarily.
Fake accounts, I guess, would be the. I don't have necessarily proof on anything else, but obviously things like that with Wells Fargo have been a concern.
And the second thing is I don't really take technology advice from somebody who uses a flip phone or doesn't use email, right? Again, you shouldn't ask me for value investing advice, and so he kind of has his domain, which he's the best in the world
What you're saying is Warren Buffett doesn't get it, so stay out of it, basically.
People will listen to his opinion because he's one of the best investors of all time. When it comes to technology, though, I think there's better people to listen to
You're
than
saying
Warren
he's
Buffett.
behind the curve. Seriously behind the curve. Talk to me about Sweden, because they've launched a digital coin, or at least they're testing the testing phases. They are way more advanced, it seems, than even the Chinese, who are clearly pumping a lot of money and investment and time into this.
So these central bank digital currencies are all coming, and really what I think people need to understand is all of the central bank digital currencies are simply taking the existing monetary policy and changing the technology form factor.
Yeah, I'm
right?
about
What Bitcoin does is
I'm streaming.
policy. It's not a fiat inflationary type model.
I'm waiting for this to come down and shorten right now. So
competition of currencies.
I pulled a trade with 2 Bitcoin, and I'm down $80 right now. So I'm waiting for that shit to pop back down, and I gotta sell it real quick. So.
That's I think where we believe that the Bitcoin.
Well, I'm doing some research. I'm listening to Anthony Pompilano right now. You know what I'm saying? It's going good, dude. It's going good right now. You know what I'm saying? So we're on here.
What's up?
Been on this shit a lot.
What's going on, Chuck? I'm streaming right now, watching and learning some shit. And also listening to an interview with Anthony Pomp.
He's learning how to suck dick.
If you want to come on, what's this girl's name? She's so hot.
I'm watching Formula 1 right now.
Come back in VR.
For what? What are we gonna do?
Simp?
You don't want to get caught by your girl, dog.
No, we good.
Oh, we good?
We good. Let's go.
oh, we good now. Oh.
Alright, boys. I'm going back mute. What are y'all doing?
Did I even go mute?
We're just hanging out right now.
Alright.
Yeah, bro. Like,
my bad. I'm not watching this video.
We're not simping yet. We're not simping yet.
Come on, this shit need to go down. We need it to come down, man. We're at 95.50.
What we just see is we see people looking for the cheapest power, which is renewable power. Thankfully, when it comes to a lot of renewable power sources, there's excess power.
Just take a rip, you know, get your mind right.
Right, so that's obviously one of the big problems is the battery issues.
I should hop on VR and start shilling Bitcoin.
Yeah, you should, bro. You can watch the Bitcoin from VR, dude.
Be like, hey guys, what's going on? Have you ever heard about Bitcoin? Let me tell you.
Start
do you
plugging
want this avatar? Do you really? How about, let me put you on right quick. What's your Bitcoin? Oh, you don't have one? Oh, let's get you a Bitcoin wallet. Be like, yo, fucking kick this guy out of here. Oh, fuck you, alright? Buy this Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's true.
On the blockchain, continuing that trend of it being the most secure in the world, but it's using renewable than kind of non-renewables that are more expensive to actually produce.
But there's 2 arguments there. There's one that, look, this is the most secure option that people have out there if they come to understand that, and therefore there is some compensation. There is an energy cost to that.
You ready? You ready, bro?
But you also told me that
Give me back 2 seconds.
around 77. I think Bitcoin has a PR problem.
Right. And on top of that, where we
Yo, why do people messaging me ooh bro?
Is into these renewable-based solutions, right? So whether it's things around hydro, solar, you know, I've talked to a lot of people about.
I don't like that ooh shit, man.
They have excess power generation, they can't store it. Well, all of a sudden, if it's actually cheaper and cleaner to use, could you start to use the nuclear power? I think there's a lot of options, but the best part about this is there's a financial incentive for miners to figure out how to innovate in this space, because if they are the leaders, there is a very, very big payoff at the end of it.
Will it ever be less energy intensive? I mean, I've got some comparisons here. It was a report done last year. The comparable carbon footprint of Bitcoin mining is New Zealand's. Electrical energy use comparable to the power consumption in Chile. E-waste generation comparable to Luxembourg. Nation states in terms of energy consumption here and carbon footprint. Can it improve that, or you have to, as long as it's renewable energy that's being used?
Well, I think it's 2 things, right? So one is renewable makes that story very different than if it wasn't.
It
right?
does.
And then second is because it's the most secure computing in the world, again, you expect it to have that high energy consumption, but the hardware is also changing. So what you're seeing is much more energy efficient hardware coming in.
Yeah, I think Clutzy's slowly turning into a simp, dude. Dude, he's the same shit happened to me, man. You start out like slow, like he's doing, and then you turn into like a chunk, a full-on chunk. Full on chunk. Bro, I'm serious, dude. It's a thing.
Bitcoin is 100,000 in 2021. At what point does Bitcoin's value become so lucrative that bigger companies...
We're gonna plug some Bitcoin. All right, that's what we're gonna do. In this sesh, we're gonna be like, have you heard of Bitcoin?
and offer our technology?
So one of the things I think really
Are you currently invested into Bitcoin right now, sir?
solve the problem of storing power.
Oh, how much Bitcoin do you currently have?
And where is power
Nice,
best
nice.
monetized today? One of
You know, we're gonna get it going. All right, we're gonna get it rolling.
I'm an investor in a company that one of my business partners runs that essentially takes car tires and turns it into a number of commodities, including power. Well, if you sell that power into the grid, you can sell it for 3 cents, 4 cents, maybe 5 cents if you're really lucky. If you then go and you mine Bitcoin with that same power source, you can generate 25, 30, 35, 40 cents. There's a pretty material increase in the financial performance of your power consumption by mining Bitcoin versus selling into the grid. Even the power...
What's he's in a private world right now, dude? I think he's European.
9, 10, 12, 13 cents. So mining Bitcoin is actually so lucrative compared to these other power consumption models that I think over time, more and more of them will start to move in this direction. We're already seeing some of them start, but I think really when that price rises over the next kind of 18 to 24 months is where you'll start to see some really big companies move into the space.
Elon Musk?
Look, he's got probably some of the best battery technology in the market. And, you know, with Tesla, if all of a sudden those power walls either have slow sales in terms of going to homes, or he's able to figure out some kind of industrial model, you know, I'm not one to say that he's not crazy enough to do it. And it's quite lucrative. Yeah, and look, and we know that he's aware of Bitcoin, right? He's talked about it. He thinks that paper money's going away. So he's very aware of kind of how all this is playing out. Again, it's probably a distraction for them in the short term. But at some point, I do think entrepreneurs realize, hey, if these power packs actually work how they're promised, they can store power, and I can use it to my advantage to mine Bitcoin, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody tries it.
And you're comfortable then? We've talked about the PR situation that I think you have, you don't think you have.
I don't have any PR. It's Bitcoin, but I don't think that Bitcoin is in a bad place either.
No, but I do think as the conversation about sustainability and green technology continues, and we're seeing that more and more, even just in the last few months, I do think this is one of the things that will keep coming up, so you're going to have to keep talking about this. But you are comfortable with the store of value argument for Bitcoin here versus utility value and transaction speeds, because we did touch on that a little bit in the live show.
Yeah, so I think that store of value is really important. You have to have store of value before you can have medium of exchange. And ultimately, the store of value comes down to two things, right? One is security. It can't disappear. It can't be hacked, etc. And Bitcoin being the most secure computing network in the world is very secure, right? So we feel confident there. When it comes to price, what you want to see is over long periods of time, either you're preserving your wealth so the price stays flat or continues to increase. The monetary policy of Bitcoin relies on one thing: supply and demand economics. Artificially capped supply, if demand increases, price will go up, right, in US dollar terms. And so again, if you zoom out, over the last decade, it's the best performing asset. Over the last 12 months, up 150%. In the last, 6 weeks or so, it's up 30%. Built to do. Now, there's high volatility on an intraday basis, and so people look and they're like, oh my God, it was up 10%, it's down 6%, and they kind of are emotional.
Oil's been more volatile, actually, in the last 3 months, so we'll give crypto that.
Yeah, but again, people who put their wealth and have a low time preference in Bitcoin have been rewarded very well with this store of wealth thesis, and so we tend to think that the non-correlation of traditional assets will continue to be a valuable kind of aspect of Bitcoin, especially when you have geopolitical uncertainty, things like coronavirus, etc., where the traditional markets kind of go into chaos.
What's up, bro?
Bitcoin's used to 5 or 10% swings up or down in a single day. Out of traditional markets, literally people freak out when that happens, and so I think that Bitcoin is kind of better positioned for the future world that we're going into the next couple of years than any of the traditional assets.
A final question: if you couldn't own or buy Bitcoin, what other digital asset would you buy?
Yeah, it's a great question. It would probably be digitized traditional assets, right, or tokenized traditional assets. I don't think that traditional assets are necessarily going to go away. What we're going to see is a similar transition from what we saw from what I call the analog age of security. So stocks used to be physical pieces of paper that we would buy and sell and transact.
So you wouldn't buy XRP or you wouldn't buy TRX? Why?
No. Because I ultimately don't think that they have the same value that these other assets have, right? My belief is...
The store of value argument.
Yeah, my belief is that stocks, what gives them value, right? Again, GDP, revenue, profits, etc. All the things...
stream of income from a company that's doing something or
they
selling
have assets,
something or
right, etc.
creating something.
So everything that makes those valuable, that doesn't change. You're just changing the technology form factor of which you will buy that asset. So you won't buy that electronic QSIP anymore. You'll now buy that same stock. It'll just be a digitized or tokenized stock. I actually like those assets. They're not bad assets, and I don't think that Bitcoin competes with those assets. What Bitcoin competes with very specifically is other currencies, right? And those currencies, even if they change their technology form factor, I think the monetary policy is bad. Bitcoin's monetary policy is superior, but all of these other assets that are quote-unquote utility tokens, either they're utility in terms of they give you access to something, so they're not really an investment, it's more of I get utility or some good or service in exchange.
So you're separating, I'll use XRP as an example simply because I've interviewed Brad recently.
Yep.
You see no connection between what Ripple is trying to achieve with their network and the value of XRP.
Yeah, and I think Brad would say this, right, is Ripple, the software company, is different than XRP, the token. And I think that part of the problem is that retail investors have believed that by buying XRP, they have exposure to the financial performance of Ripple. That's obviously not true.
And then it would be a security, and that's part of the argument.
I won't even go there, right? But on top of that, what ends up happening is if Ripple is successful, that does not necessarily mean that XRP ends up being successful, right? And so also that means that XRP could go up in value and Ripple could go out of business, right? Speculators could drive the price, etc. So when you get this disjointment between XRP and Ripple or other assets that have a similar mechanism, what ends up happening is I, as an investor, actually want to own equity in the software company because there's profits, there's assets, there's all revenues, etc. I don't want to own the asset that may or may not be there in the future and doesn't have any underlying utility or value driver that I can point to and say, I have confidence that that's going to last. Bitcoin's different because it's backed by the most secure computing network in the world.
Final question. I read an interview with you in 2019 that said 50% of your net wealth is in Bitcoin. You probably regret saying that. Can I ask you where it is today?
Yeah, so I've never sold any Bitcoin. I don't know what the numbers are today. In fact, I've bought more Bitcoin. But in my whole thought process here is I'm relatively young compared to most people, right? And the other thing people never ask me is like, well, what do I do with the rest? And it's either cash or real estate, right? And so for the most part, I'm pretty risk averse with half my portfolio. I'm obviously very risky with the other half, kind of a barbell strategy. Given my age and kind of my risk tolerance level, it actually makes a lot of sense. Right?
So you're diversified, even though a significant chunk of your wealth,
of course,
is in Bitcoin.
If you look right, and again, when I talk to kind of traditional investors, I say, well, how much of your wealth is in dollar-denominated stocks, for example? So when we have a day like yesterday we had, where the stock market draws down, a material percentage for the volatility that it's used to, all of a sudden you may have 50, 60, 70, 80% of your wealth that's all in one single asset class, right? And the individual companies are different and all that, but you're still exposing yourself to a similar risk level in terms of everything is correlated. It's all going to move together. Bitcoin's no different. It just happens to be that I've made a very calculated investment decision and one that I'm willing to be comfortable and live with.
We'll reconvene in 2021 when it's 100,000. Great to have you with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What is going on here?
The Bitcoin bulls are back.
Yeah.
Look, yesterday CME Bitcoin futures, $1.2 billion in volume. A lot of these exchanges are seeing all-time highs in volume, and I think that we've seen the bottom of the bear market.
But why? And who are these people?
Yeah, I think there's two things. So one, definitely institutions are starting to come in. You see Fidelity announcing that they're going to start their custody and trading backed, set the deadline for July. But retail also is coming in, right? And I think what you're seeing is two things. One, it's a very scarce asset. We're about a year out from the halvening, so it's going to get about half as scarce in the monetary schedule.
That sounds really exciting.
Historically, that's been a big moment in terms of it really is a price driver because it reminds people that there's only 21 million of these.
It's just an arbitrary thing, right? Cut it in half in terms of units?
Preset every 4 years, basically the amount that is created every 10 minutes gets cut in half. So right now it's 12.5 Bitcoin every 10 minutes. In May 2020, it'll get cut to 6.25. So if you believe in scarce assets, that's a big moment, and we're about a year out from that. And then the other thing I'd say is I think that the trade war actually has a little bit to do with it, right? This idea that we're watching, essentially a trade war play out on Twitter. You look at a non-sovereign currency, and I think that there's some kind of safe haven.
Flip that around, though. If this trade war gets solved, does Bitcoin go down?
It could, right? I think that the big thing here is if you look at the macro trend, Bitcoin has seen 3 drawdowns over 80% in its lifetime, in the last decade, but it is the best performing asset. And one of the corollaries I draw is if you look at Amazon stock, right? So Amazon's drawn down over 90% twice. The intra-year drawdown is over 30% on average, right? So it's a pretty volatile stock in that sense. Bitcoin's done very similar things, but what it continues to do is set new yearly lows, right? So don't look at the highs, look at the lows. And again, it's just supply and demand. If you have a scarce asset and demand increases.
Mr. Wonderful thinks it's worthless.
Well,
he called it garbage this morning.
I want to explore the idea. Yeah, I did say that. I want to explore the idea that there's nothing here except raw speculation. No different than when I go to Las Vegas and put my money on black or red on a roulette wheel, because where is the intrinsic value inherent in deploying real capital, let's talk real money here, and putting it into Bitcoin as a storage of value? I get gold. For 2,000 years, including the Romans, they saw value in owning that as an asset class. Tell me why this, which is basically a digital game, that's the way I look at it, has any intrinsic value. When people actually put real money into this, they make no interest, they can't pay their taxes with it, the regulators don't like it, which is always a problem for compliance. And where's the long-term value? Just this idea that they're going to cut the number of units in half, that's such a scam. Like, that's just totally BS.
So I would say 2 things. One is it's disruptive technology. So if you look at it from a technology standpoint.
But that also has an odor of BS to it.
Look, everything that's new seems different, right, in the beginning. And I think what you've got to realize is with Bitcoin specifically, money is a belief system. So the US dollar, the only reason why you and I use it is because we believe it has value. So I give you $1, you give me a good or service in exchange. Right. We believe that it has value. Bitcoin has value because 2 people who exchange it believe it has that value. And what we're seeing is the volume, right? Look at people using it. That's ultimately what matters.
What about all the other crypto crap? There's lots of other coins.
I believe Bitcoin is the king and is going to stay the king for a very long time.
So I taught a class at Harvard 18 months ago. The young people in that class challenged me. I put $100 into something called Coinbase, which is a wallet thing. And
you buy Bitcoin?
I bought them all. I bought all the crypto crap. I put $100 in. It's now worth 30. That's a 70% loss on my crypto crap. Now, I bought them all. I think that really sucks. And I think people should understand today the hot digital is Bitcoin. Tomorrow it could be whatever, right?
Again, I think that Bitcoin, the reason why Bitcoin is getting so much attention, it's the best performing asset in the last decade. Right, it's drastically outperformed S&P, every other kind of financial asset that's out there. And the second thing is the institutions are coming in because Bitcoin is actually a better store of value. It's more transparent and more secure. So regulators, they actually like Bitcoin in the sense of law enforcement can track criminal activity. Right, every single transaction is done on a public ledger.
I'm not sure the law enforcement loves Bitcoin.
I've interviewed a DA agent who came on, and they would love for criminals to use Bitcoin over U.S. dollars and cash, right? It's much more traceable. And so what law enforcement is saying is they want these digital currencies used, Bitcoin specifically, because of the public nature of the transactions, easier to track the criminal activity.
After the fact?
After the fact, yeah, of course. Well, U.S. dollars, you can't track it before or after.
Last time this had a big run up to 20,000 and people started talking about assets with it, the SEC was handing out subpoenas like birthday cards.
They were doing it for the ICOs. So ICOs are essentially people who took the concept of a blockchain or a cryptocurrency token, and they were using it for fundraising for companies. And so you can imagine if you go out and solicit funds from investors and you do nefarious things, the SEC cares and they want to come talk to you.
That was basically fraud. I mean, you're talking about instances of fraud. And the fact of the matter is Bitcoin has been acting pretty well in respect to the recent bad news hitting the sector. We had a hack of Binance, and then we also have the New York AG bringing charges against Tether and Bitfinex, and the coin has done
Melissa, if it's a real currency,
well.
Why can't I pay my taxes with it?
You
why
can.
Does the IRS take it?
You can. In the state of Ohio, they accept Bitcoin as for taxes, and there's other states that are working on it now.
Federally, you think it'll ever get there?
For sure.
Wow, you're an optimist.
When?
I'm not in the business of making bets on the federal government's regulatory decisions.
Do we hit the past highs again?
I definitely think that we will, right? Again,
What sort of time frame?
Look, that's the hard part. The way that I think to look at this, it's a non-correlated asymmetric return asset. And we definitely, in my opinion, we've hit the bottom of the bear market. We've now entered into this bull market. Historically, about a year out from that halving period is when that kicks off. It wouldn't surprise me if we enter kind of a 2 to 3 year bull market now. And 20,000, I think, will be a blip on the radar, just like previous past highs were.
Only Bitcoin, no other crypto crap.
I'm not here to talk about anything else but Bitcoin.
It seems like you would think that if it's all boats would rise in this tide of crypto.
So for your portfolio, here's the number one thing I can tell you as to why you should own Bitcoin. It's a non-correlated asymmetric return asset that the value drivers of all of your equities, everything else is tied to earnings, GDP, interest rates, etc.
The problem is that Bitcoin's not tied to anything.
Well, neither is U.S. dollars, and how big is your cash position?
You know, I look, I love your optimistic view of it. You haven't changed my mind at all. It's still garbage, and I'm not going to take real money and put it into this thing. It's never going to happen. I mean, imagine real money, taking real dollars that I'm making in cash 2.1% on and putting it into crypto crap.
Agree to disagree.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you're crypto crap garbage.
Garbage is better than garbage.
Right.
He keeps saying accoutrement. He's got
He's
this
got the
French thing
accoutrement,
going
he's got the garbage.
I think a little colorful language is necessary when discussing Bitcoin. There's no question about it.
Okay, Anthony, thank you.
Huh. Interesting. Go ahead and end it here, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate y'all checking it out.
Martha's here. You have
Back
thoughts on this?
You know what I'm saying? I'll check you guys later. Catch you on the flip side.